Today, we have an incredibly inspiring guest, writer, musician, and now successful shifter, Lorraine Devin Wilke. Lorraine has not only released 45 pounds with the shift, but has kept it off for 5 months and counting. And in this episode, she opens up about her lifelong struggles with body image as a female rock and roll singer, the ups and downs of dieting, and how she finally found freedom from the weight battle with shift. Plus, Lorraine gives us an exclusive peek into her upcoming novel, Chick Singer, set to release in April 2025. So if you've ever felt trapped in that cycle of weight loss and gain, or if you love a good story of transformation, this episode is for you. So stay tuned as Lorraine shares her powerful journey and the lessons she's learned along the way. So let's get started. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Sound good? Let's get started. Hello and welcome, and come on in. I am back. Oh, so happy to be home from Spain, though I had a wonderful time. And you will hear all about it in my adventures and my weight maintenance adventures in my upcoming episode that I will be airing in May, because we've got lots going on in April. And but my episode that you will look forward to will address ideas to have an amazing time, but manage your weight while you're traveling. It's going to be perfectly timed for the summer and summer travels. And I think I'm going to call it my sangria strategies. What do you think? Coming soon. But it was amazing to see my daughter, and she's grown up so much this year living abroad and teaching abroad. She's teaching all these wonderful little 6-year-old Spanish children in this little teeny tiny town, and she just loves them to death. They are so cute. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, anyway. And then my sister, she popped down for 2 days. This is what you do in Europe. You're like, oh, I live in England. You're in Spain. Let me pop down for a day and just see ya. You know, we'll go out to dinner. We'll spend the day, and then I'll pop back up to England. And it sounds so crazy and jet-setty, doesn't it? But it's so funny because, England and Spain, it's like, Oregon and California. It's not that far, and air flights are really cheap. So it's kind of cool. But, when we think of it, because people, when we lived in England, we would fly to Paris for the weekend, and it was just not that big of a deal, but it sounds like a big deal. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. That is what I was great to see my sister. So I can't wait to share today's guest with you. Lorraine has released 45 pounds and has kept them off, and she has such a cool story to tell. So I'm going to just shut the heck up and let her tell it. Well, hello, Lorraine, and welcome to the Thin Thinking podcast. I'm very excited to dive into our interview today.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Like I said, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity.
Well, and like I said, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity too. If you can't see Lorraine, but she's gorgeous, and I'm hearing about all the exciting things that she's up to her in her life, which is very, very fun. Um, but Lorraine, I know you came into Shift. We were talking about this just a few minutes ago, around January of last year, but as you know, what I like to explore with people like yourself is the inside story of how you found your way to where you are today. Because what you were saying just before we turned on record was like, you feel like you have very much ownership of maintaining your weight and where you
Yeah.
are now. And I think our listeners would love to hear that journey of from struggling to uh, I will call it success, but I'd also call it stability,
Yeah.
security, confidence.
That's a good word.
So yeah, so maybe let's start from the beginning since you're a
Okay.
storyteller. We're going to hear more
Okay.
about Lorraine's book that's coming out, but since you're a storyteller, start at the beginning of like when you struggled with weight. Did you start struggling early in life or was it a little
Yeah.
later?
Yeah, no, early. When I turned, I think puberty, when I went through, because remember, it was eighth grade. In
Uh-huh.
eighth grade, I got chubby. And then I was chubby until the summer between my freshman and sophomore years in high school when I moved, where family moved, and I went from an all-girls Catholic boarding school to high school in a new town that was boys too. And I decided to reinvent myself that summer. So I lost weight and I was pretty good for that first year, and then I got chubby again. So it's been this roller coaster my whole life since eighth
Did,
grade.
when you went on that diet and reinvented yourself, do you remember how you lost the weight? Like, did you go
Yes,
on
I
some
do.
crazy diet? I always
No,
like to hear what people did.
well, it's funny because I remember when I started the shift, and I remember I made a comment, and you and I corresponded about it, about not wanting to count calories, right? The
Mhm.
first time I ever went on a diet, I was in a grocery store line, and there was one of those little booklets, that are that big, and it said, lose this amount of weight, and it was a tiny little booklet, and it was all about calorie counting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get that. And I did,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I did. And now how I figured out my calories was probably all guesswork because there was no internet back then. But I don't know how much I lost, but I lost weight through this calorie counting little book. And so calorie counting has always been, a part of my consciousness. But when I got older, yeah, I did all sorts of dumbass diets. I mean, really, just, I did the Cambridge diet where, you drink shakes, then you eat a meal and basically fasting. And I got real skinny again, but of course, it doesn't teach you anything about how to eat or how to strategize or any of that stuff. So as soon as you lose the weight on the diet, I was in absolute terror that, oh no, no, the diet's over, and now what am I going to do? And what I
Right.
did was I slowly gained all the weight back.
Right.
And that's been the cycle for my entire life, frankly. Yeah.
Right. And did you in going through those cycles, how did you develop your what I would call your inner critic? Like how did that play out? Because I know you were also performing and in the public
Yeah.
eye. So like how did that dieting and performing and how did that all come into play? Like was
It,
that being a woman in the music industry, right?
yeah, yeah,
Lorraine was in the
yeah.
music industry in Los Angeles. She was in a band and big hair, right?
Oh, yeah. Big hair. Spritz forte and crimping, the whole thing. Yeah.
I love it. But that must have been an interesting journey weight wise too. Like, am I
It was,
enough? Like, were
oh
you ever
no.
thin enough? Like it being in the public eye.
Yeah, it started to become, I mean, I developed an eating disorder where I was literally on the road with a scale, weighing myself every day and panicked because I'd lost a bunch of weight doing this Cambridge diet. Did you ever hear that one?
Oh
It
my
was
gosh,
years
yes.
ago.
I probably even did it, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
probably had to do with meat and I mean
No,
protein, right?
it was a shake. It
Oh,
was
it was
one of
just a
those
shake.
kind. It was a
Okay, maybe I
shake.
didn't do it.
You do two shakes and then you eat a meal, one meal where, protein and,
Hmm.
but I was like, no, I'm just going to do the shake. And so, I got very thin. It was the thinnest
Hmm.
I'd ever been. I was like, I'm so proud. And I got so much validation for it because I had been in this band and there was another female vocalist in the band, and she was very tiny and teensy tiny and beautiful. And I remember the leader of the band once said to me something like, "You should be like her,"
Oh
like
my
he wanted me
God.
to lose weight. So then the band broke up, and I went off and I did this crazy diet and I lost all this weight. So then when he saw me again, he was like, "Oh my God, you did it." And I got so much validation for it that I was terrified to lose it. I mean,
Gain it
to
back.
go back. So I didn't eat or I became bulimic for a period of time. I mean,
Right.
I was so panicked about it because you get so much validation for being a skinny woman in the entertainment industry, which is certainly still going on. And then
Absolutely.
I just finally got that better. My brain kind of just took over and said, "This is not good for you. Stop doing it." And so I did, but I never figured out how to do it. I would go on diets, they'd be successful, different ones. Beverly Hills diet, do you remember that one?
Oh yes, I
Oh
do
my
indeed.
God, yes, that one. And then and then I'd always gain the weight back, And then I
Yeah.
had a baby, and then it was like, oh, it's okay. I can be sort of chunky. It's okay. But then, as my son is getting into his late grade school years and I'm still chunky, I'm like, yeah, I don't really can't use that excuse anymore, but I couldn't figure it out. And
Mm.
I did another diet that had to do with another drink a shake and thing, and that I lost weight again. And then I gained it back. Well, not all of it. I gained a third of it back, but I couldn't continue to lose weight to where I wanted to get to a goal weight that I'm at now. And I started it again before I started your program, and it made me sick. It was like my gut didn't like it anymore. It didn't want to do shakes. It didn't want to do all these programs. They tell you what to eat and what supplements to take and do this and do that. And every
Yeah.
time I would do those, I would have gut problems. So I
Interesting.
gave up. I gave up. I
Yeah.
gave up until I found you
Oh. And well, how did you find Shift? Just
on
online?
Instagram. On Instagram. It's interesting because I had gotten the idea, I had done hypnosis
Hmm.
for other things, nothing to do with weight, for other things. And so, and I had a sister who did hypnosis to get over a food aversion, and it really worked for her. So I did some work with the same um, uh,
Hypnotherapist?
hypnotherapist, and it had to do more with like sleep disorders and stuff. And, it was helpful, but I never thought about it in terms of weight. And then I moved on from there. And then my son was getting married in 21, and I was like, okay,
Hmm.
he's getting married in May. I'm going to start in January, and I'm going to be really good and really strict, and I'm going to lose all this weight. I was really good and I was really strict, and I did not lose weight. I lost maybe 3 pounds, and I was like, what the hell, And that's when you talk about my body's broken, that's when I went, okay, I'm postmenopausal. My body's broken. Okay, I guess I just can't do it. And yet
Hmm.
I wanted to, and because I could feel that there was part of me that was always hiding because I wasn't happy with my body. I felt sort of ashamed. And I
Mm.
also felt like, why can't you do this? What is wrong with you that you can't do this? There's so many things in life you can't control, but you could surely control your weight and you're not. So you are a loser. And so I started thinking, well, maybe I need to be hypnotized. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember, but I remember being on Instagram and scrolling through, and I stumbled upon one of your videos. And I remember I liked you immediately. I'm not just saying this. I was like, oh, she seems real. Like you weren't doing that slick, hey, because there were
Right.
other people that would be on there and be very slick and very, and and you had a program where it was because it was January 17th that I started. So it was January 16th, and it was kind of like you could do the month, the 30-day thing for
Mhm.
less money. If you jumped on it by the next day, I think it was
Right.
like the promotion was almost over. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to trust my gut. And so that's when I started. And that's, changed my
And
life.
that was a year ago.
That was a year ago. January
That's
17th, I started. So it's almost exactly a
cool.
year ago.
And how was like for people who I know you had had experiences with hypnosis, so you were not guarded about going through hypnosis. You were not concerned that, it was like mind control or anything. You
Oh,
you
no.
felt pretty open about that. Did you ever use hypnosis for performing or anything like that?
No,
Like
I
for,
didn't.
no?
No.
Well, you probably didn't need to. You probably are a natural born performer, but some because
No,
I've
I
had,
mean, there were probably things that I could have used it for because I started getting a little bit weird about things as a performer, but I'd never
yeah.
thought about the hypnosis at that point in my career. So,
Yeah. It's interesting
yeah,
because I've had performers come to me. I've worked with some people, and I don't like that's not my forte, but I understood enough about stage fright and having to be, in front of a camera or having to, do like before video and streaming and that whole world, I had to do seminars and things like that. I had to do it. So I was like, well, I've had to overcome it. How did I do that? And because I don't do anything that I haven't done
sure. Well, that's
myself.
a good, that's a good
I'm just like, I'm
plan.
not. So, but yeah, no, but I only say this because you and I were talking about rock and roll. And I've had a couple of guitar players who were, I don't know, they were kind of, they weren't super famous guitar players, but they were very well-known guitar players who had like insecurity about getting up and doing long riffs, like
Yeah.
and like letting loose and being in front of an audience and really going for it. And I helped a couple of those guys, but performers do sometimes get into, I've had some huge celebrities come to me, singers who came to me because I worked with this voice therapist, and then she started referring very huge celebrities to me who had it wounded their vocal cords, and then
Yeah.
they got very uh, like they really felt like their voice was never going to come back and that they weren't going to have that same. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I've been through that too.
yeah, you have. Yeah, it seems to be that I couldn't imagine. I mean, I use my voice a lot, but I couldn't imagine that, that it's your instrument and that's, you know, all you have when you get
I
up there.
know, I
That's it.
know, I know. And rock and roll just is not really great for the vocal cords. I mean, even now when I'm not singing all that much, if I have to do like a performance, I have to give myself at least 2 weeks. I'm not kidding. 2 full weeks of these vocal warm-ups that I got from a vocal therapist back in the 90s that I still have. And they're, it's an hour's worth of vocal warm-ups that I have to do every single day for 2 weeks to get my voice remotely close to being what I want it to be. So that's how
Right.
much damage I did to
Right. Well, I imagine too, you
him.
have to really work on your range and all
Oh,
of that.
sure.
That's amazing. Okay, so sorry, I
No,
digressed
that's
there a
okay.
second, but I'm sure it's very fun to hear about the world of singing and rock and roll, So um so you started doing the shift, you do and the 30-day process, if those who aren't familiar with, it's a 30-day sort of hypnosis, meditation, and all of that. And in that time, Lorraine, what for you, because we're thinking about your inner journey. We're interested in your own, like what sparked for you as far as like, I know we work with inner coach and inner critic, like how did you start to navigate that world of managing yourself after, my guess, having a very loud inner critic
Oh
you're not
yeah.
enough, and, you're never going to figure this out. Your body's broken. How did you start to navigate that world?
Well, I completely surrendered to the process, right? Like I had the only thing I had resistance to, as you recall, was that the calorie counting. I was like, oh God, not this again. And I remember you wrote back to me and said something like, think of it as being a scientist, and don't get caught up in it. And once I got over that hump, and I surrendered to getting a food scale, and I found a program that worked for me in terms of calculating calories. And the bell went off when I realized, oh, when I thought I was eating well below what I should be eating, I wasn't. I was accumulating way more calories than I thought. So when I
Right.
started tracking my food, that was a revelation because I realized without tracking food, you really don't know. You're guessing. And I was guessing wrong, clearly. Um, and I
Well,
surrendered
can I
to,
can I
sure,
just
sure.
interrupt here? Because just to make clear to people, this is such a great point that you're making, is that there's a lot of women, especially postmenopausal, we get in this rut of our body being broken. And there's also at the same time this huge fear of tracking calories because we came from that,
Oh God,
especially if
yeah.
we're of a certain age, we came from that time frame when it was like counting calories was like this very associated with being a dieter, deprivation, and it had
Yeah,
this sort of, I don't know, a real shame, real, you're a loser, you're counting calories, you're like, it's in a
right.
world, right? And and so when people come in and they hear that, there is a huge PTSD, like aversion to
Oh yeah,
tracking, because we don't call it counting calories, we call it tracking because it's data. And we're using it, the rational part of the brain rather than the emotional part of the brain. And as you know, Lorraine, because and what happens with postmenopausal women is once they get over that hump, they start to see like, oh, actually, this is really helpful
well,
because
it gives you control. Yeah,
it does, but it also shows you without anybody else telling you, like you're eating way more than you thought you were. And
right,
because the way that we've been brought up in these, or not brought up, but the dieting world or the weight management world is very counting calories phobic, but it is and eat healthy. So there be tons of people coming to me who eat the austere, very pure diets but just way too much food. So the
right.
and as a postmenopausal woman, because I have a metabolism machine in my office, um, our metabolisms go down 200, 300 calories during menopause. So we don't get that reset of our brain, like this is how much my body actually requires to keep moving and living our lives,
Right.
right?
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So what you just described was a reset. You got a
Absolutely.
mental reset,
Well, it
which is
was
great.
between, yeah, it was between what you wrote to me, because I felt very resistant to it. It was kind of like,
Of
oh
course.
God.
Yeah,
And
it's horrible. People,
yeah.
yeah,
Right. But then when I, but I was very vigilant about doing the meditation every day and the hypnosis every day and the coaching whenever it was assigned. I was absolutely committed and dedicated to it. And at some point, once I got the food scale, once I got my little calorie program, it all started to kind of work together. And it's funny because then I would see in the group, I would see some people write, I've been doing this for months and I haven't lost any weight. And then somebody would say, are you tracking your food or are you weighing your food? And they'd be like, well, no. And I thought, ding, 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 because I'd been there, right? I was like the year of my son's wedding when I didn't lose any weight. I'd say, I'm barely eating anything. What's going on? Well, then after I started tracking my food, I realized what's going on was that I was eating more than barely. But you don't know because if you don't do the work of figuring out, well, so like you were saying about apples, I always remember that one. It's like you say, an apple, it's this many calories. Well, there's lots of different sizes of apples. And so you just go by the apple, you're not necessarily going to get an accurate count. So, and kind of like this is interesting because I thought about this because I've done therapy in the past many, many years. And I always remember I said to my therapist, it's interesting now. You realize that a problem that you've had You don't realize it's gone away until later you're thinking about it and you're like, oh, that thing is gone. Like it's kind of, it disappears without you even realizing it. And I realized with this program that by doing the hypnosis and the meditation, things changed and things moved off. Things that weren't good for me moved off, and positive things changed without me going, oh, look, this is happening now. It was like
Right.
it just started to become an endemic part of my perceptions about food and strategizing and not eating or eating or whatever, and also exercise. That's a huge component of my success with it. So
Were you
yeah, I mean,
exercising before, or did you start moving a lot
yeah.
more? Like, tell us about how you kind of moved into movement exercise.
Well, I've always been an exerciser. That's always been a consistent thing in my life.
Okay.
So that part wasn't hard for me, but I I won't say I upped the ante, maybe a little, but I mean now I do I have these little things like when I'm warming up the water for my tea, I put it in the microwave for 3 minutes and I jog in place the entire time. My husband thinks I'm insane, but it's just I'm like, well, I'm standing here waiting for the water to heat up, so I may as well do some, um, stuff like that. Or I make sure that if I'm not going to do a long walk outside, I put on music for half an hour and dance around my room. Or I also got like a wobble board and I do wobble board exercises. I have a wave machine that I do. I mean, so it's there's always something because I've realized that when I hit plateaus or when I felt like, well, I've gone too many days without, and once I up the ante and the exercise, it sort of breaks you out of these little plateaus. So
Right.
exercise is really important, to me. And so when people say I'm not losing weight, it's always like, well, either you're not tracking your food or you're not weighing your food or you're not exercising. It's one of those three things. And I recognize the plaint, right? Because I've done the same, I've said the same things, look at how hard I'm looking, honey. See, I barely eat anything, you know. And he'd say, yeah, I know, you don't eat that much. But, like you said, it's like you don't realize that, yeah, you did eat more than you should have.
Well, I mean, and it's not the amount our bodies actually require is just not a ton. I mean, like at a certain age, I mean, we require food. We definitely require food, but we require, especially women, unfortunately, over the age of 50, we don't require as much as we did
No,
in
well,
our
my
20s
count
and
has been
30s.
between 1100 and 1200 calories a day. That's it. And that
Mhm.
goes really fast, so you have to parcel things out. So you have stuff to eat all day,
Yeah,
and that's part of the
yeah,
strategizing you talk so much about, which is really
yeah.
essential.
So how, I know you've mentioned you've released 45, between 45 and 50 pounds, and you've been maintaining, which is awesome. We talk to me about approaching maintenance as you were getting towards your goal weight. Like what started to go through your mind? Because I know in the past you would get to that weight and then, have that freak out like, am I going to gain it back? So was it the same fear this time, or did you feel different?
No, it
What?
was very different because one of the things I loved about your program was, and I always say this when anybody's asking me about it, is that you didn't give us a diet. You didn't say, here's what you eat and here's what you don't. You
Right.
said, it's up to you. You figure it out. So there was no diet. So there's no diet
Hmm.
that you do for an X period of time and then you're done doing that thing. And
Hmm.
that's when it all falls apart. So the food that I was eating and the way that I would structure my eating day was like normal food that I'd eat anyway, just in proper proportions and spaced out appropriately and of the right amounts. And so I knew that once I hit the weight, that I would just keep doing that. It wasn't like I was going to stop doing that. That was just my normal way of eating. And I think the thing that worried me the most actually was when I started was like if I had to go out somewhere to eat, right? Like I had to go to lunch, and
Mm.
it's harder to gauge food when you're eating in a restaurant. And then I got over that because I realized that even if I wasn't able to track it exactly, I started to just get a basic idea. And then over time, I realized that I didn't gain weight when I ate out in restaurants because I would be careful about my portions. And as long as I did my exercise, I was cool. And so that started to give me more confidence about eating out and going to
Yeah.
parties and getting through the holidays. And, it's almost like my body figured it out too, because like over the holidays, I was good. I mean, I didn't go crazy, but there were definitely days where I was eating more than my normal between 11 and 1200 calories, no question about it. And I didn't gain any weight. And so I think my body also just kind of, and I didn't like increase my exercise by a ton. It just sort of
Right.
worked out.
Normalized.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Um, are there any other insights about maintenance itself? It sounds like because you had just kind of figured out a way of eating that you enjoy, that allows you to
Right?
live at your ideal weight, that you're all good. What are some of your favorite, um, I don't want to call them tips or tricks because, I don't like those words, but like, what were some insights or some fun discoveries with food in the year like that people might, go, oh, that sounds like something fun I could do with food that would be
Well,
healthy.
you suggested this at some point where when I did go out to eat, I would know where I was going and I would go online before I left the house and look at their
Mhm.
menu and see what works here, and I'd go in knowing what I was going to order, and that sort of gave me the freedom. I wasn't like, oh my God, what's gonna,
Yeah.
I had the freedom. That worked for me. And also, oh, here's one thing, and I did write about this in the group, was that you brought up the thing about give yourself a treat at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
um the C's lollipops, which
Oh, yeah.
they're 90 calories. I thought they were 80 because in one place they said 80, but they're 90 calories. And they take forever to eat, right? Because they're hard, but they're really good taste. And so that became my end of the day treat when my husband and I would be watching whatever show we were streaming or whatever. That would be my treat at the end of the day. And it would take you like 15, 20 minutes to finish it. So you really felt like you got the pleasure of this great flavor and whatever. That really helped me because it gave me something to look forward to at the end of the day that I really enjoyed. And it was very concise. Like it wasn't like, well, I'm going to have a piece of cake. Well, you don't always know exactly how many calories are in
Yeah.
a piece of cake. Whereas this was like 90 calories. Okay, so I put that into my spreadsheet
Cracker.
in the
Hmm.
morning. And so I figured my whole day with that factored in. So that was a trick that really helped me a lot. I'm still doing that too. Um, I eat the same thing almost every morning, and I think, oh God, is that boring? But it's either yogurt or cottage cheese and berries, and I weigh it and it's portioned, and I enjoy it, and um, so that's something. I think you find the things that you really like to eat, and then you build
Hmm.
your diet around them. And I I like things like popcorn, so I factor that into stuff. But I think the strategizing is the main thing. Like a tip would be, figure out what's your priority. Like if you're going to go to a big dinner for a holiday or something, what are your priorities? Like Thanksgiving, right? Do you like the stuffing? Do you like the mashed potatoes? Just take a little bit of, you figure it out. You think about it ahead of time. You don't just
Right.
go there and dive in. That
You
part
give
was really,
yourself the choice and you think it through. It's
yeah.
much more rational brain thinking. Yeah.
But I
You're
also
saying,
think the hypnosis, because I always remember this, the first time I went to an event after I started this, I don't know, it was after the first month or whatever, but I remember it was an event where there was a cookie table, and I love cookies, and I love homemade cookies. It was a cookie table with just hundreds of different cookies. And I remember I actually looked at it and I went, that looks kind of gluttonous, like I didn't have
right.
my usual, oh, I'm just dying to have one. No, I kind of looked at it and was like, okay, no. I don't know if it was the aversion therapy, hypnosis ones or what, but it
Right.
it it worked for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And
You put,
so, I mean, that's the thing is I think that I have friends who are like, they want to do this, but they don't want to do the hypnosis and they're not succeeding. And I always say, you got to do the whole program. You can't just
yeah.
count calories. You got to rewire your brain. That's where the
Yeah.
hypnosis and the meditation really makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
That to me was the key. That was the key.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a holistic. It's because weight management is so layered. I mean, it's so
I
layered.
know it is.
People ask, why is your smoking cessation session one session and weight is like a 30 days? I was like, well, how old are you when you started smoking? You were 18. How old were you when you started eating? You were born.
Yeah, exactly.
The first thing anybody did was put something in your mouth. So, you know, take it
Well,
from
that's the
there.
thing. Unlike any other addictions, you can't just give it up.
Yeah,
You got
and you
to
need
figure
food
it
in
out.
order to live. You don't need nicotine or heroin or alcohol or any of those
Right,
other things. Yeah.
right, right.
Well, tell us about your book because I'm sure our listeners are their interest was piqued, and you've written other books, and you have a book coming out now,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because
do. Yep.
as we are speaking, it is out, and if you hear this,
It's
this
not
is
out yet. It's
2025, but in
yeah.
2026, 2027, if you're
Oh,
listening to
okay.
this in
Yeah.
it will be out. So, and the
It's
link will
yeah.
be in the show notes always. So you can always
Yeah.
go get this book. So tell us about this book, the name and
It's called Chick Singer, and it's the story of a former 80s rock singer who has her music, unbeknownst to her, put online by her recently divorced daughter, who does this as part of an admissions project she's doing to get into an art school. And the music taps into it goes viral, and it turns into a big event because the mother has been hiding this part of her life her whole life. Her daughter didn't know much about it, neither did her younger son. So when this comes out, and a record label person actually contacts the daughter and her partner, who she's working with, who works at the school. He wants to see the band. He thinks there's an actual band. Well, there is no band. This was her mother back in the 80s. And so it turns into a whole thing where she finally has to confess this to her mother, which blows up because there's a very dark story behind why the mother gave up her career and why her career fell apart. So it turns into a big drama, and which I won't reveal because you have to read it. I don't know if you can hear my cat caterwauling in the background. She wants to come in
no.
here. Um,
Oh,
but the book kind of follows the trajectory of both the mother and the daughter together and separately. So, it's a great mother-daughter story, but it's also about dreams and art and creativity versus practicality, and how we figure out how to carry our dreams into our life. And if we've given things up we didn't really want to give up, how do we reclaim them? And that's what the story's about. And it's, a lot in the music business is in it, and there's love, and there's love stories. And so I think it's a good combination of things, but it's very empowering, and I think it's a good read. I hope people think so. The responses I've got from early readers has been very positive. So yeah, I mean, people can go to my website and read about it and my other books as well. So
very cool. Well, we will
easily
put
done.
the link to your website and we will put the link to your whatever bookstore online you want,
Okay,
Amazon, what
great.
have you.
Yeah,
And go before while it's a novel, before it becomes a major motion picture, Chick Singer.
I like the way you think.
I've got the vision, Lorraine. I've got the
I
vision.
like it. I like it.
So I have one last question for you, which is if somebody was just starting or struggling, if somebody was struggling and they were like, gosh, I've got it, if they were where you were, like my body's broken, and I'm not asking for a pitch for the program, but I would just ask if you were in a struggle place, what would be that first place step you would have somebody take, or what would you say for them?
Well, I must pitch the program because I'm not to please you, but because I quite honestly and authentically, it I'm not just saying this, it has changed my life because
Oh,
it has given me a layer of confidence. And it's funny because with this book coming out, I have to do videos and appearances and stuff. And when I was heavier, I was in hiding mode. Like I didn't like the way I wore clothes to hide my body. Whenever, I'd get a call to go do something, I'd be like, oh God, I didn't like the way I looked, and I didn't feel confident presenting myself to people. So it coincided brilliantly with that because having lost the weight, I find that I just have this kind of calm confidence. It's not like, hey, look at me, I lost weight. No, it's not that. I don't even care if people notice. I don't need anybody to say anything to me. I don't need people to go, you look so great. I don't, that's fine, but I don't need it. It's a spiritual, calm, peaceful place within me that says, body, thank you. You and I together, we figured this out, and it's taken us a long time to do it. And I give you total kudos for giving me the tools to do that. So I would say to somebody, go sign up for the 30-day program and really commit yourself to it. Don't half-ass it. Don't do part of it and not the other part. 100% commit to it for 30 days. What have you got to lose other than some weight? And that's what I would say because I have done every diet known to man, and this is the only one ever in my entire long life that has netted the results it has, and it has also aided me spiritually, mentally, emotionally, because it gave me control of something I wanted to control. It gave me the tools to do that, which built more confidence, which built more respect for myself, which has impacted every area of my life. So thank you, Rita. Honestly, I sound like you paid me, you didn't. This is totally sincere and authentic because
Oh,
it's really important.
wow. Well, thank you. I get what you're saying. And I think the important thing that you're saying is that what the opportunity is to release weight and again, not about the program, but the opportunity for weight management. I think we get lost in this self-shame about like, oh, wait, it's not that big of a deal. And, it's easy to put off in this sort of, that's too
Yeah,
vain and that's too
yeah,
silly. And why should I focus on that? But from your speaking, what you were saying, which is very powerful, is it's that interaction with yourself in the way you take care of yourself, the way you show up for yourself, the way you advocate for yourself, which is the internal engine of how you experience the world and your life.
exactly.
And that ability to be able to navigate that with confidence. And like you said, you're not looking for external reinforcement from people saying you look amazing and it's great. It's just like, I did this. I learned, I got a skill set in a place where I was really struggling and I built those skills. And now I have that confidence and I have that mastery over my
Yeah,
this area of my life I didn't have mastery before. And that was you. And I know you know that. I know you were saying, the program helped, but you made it happen and you made it you and now you have that confidence. It's not the program, it's you have that
right.
internalized now. And that is what you should be proud of.
Right, and I am, but I really want to give you credit because it is the program too, because I've done so many. So I know there's a huge difference between other programs I've done and this program. And so you can't negate that. That's a fact. This program has something in it that's very unique and very different. And if a person commits themselves and dedicates themselves to it, they almost can't not succeed because that's what the tools are. It's like if you apply
Right.
the tools, they will work for you. And that isn't something that any other program that I've in my life have ever found because it's not a diet. And I mean, even when people would say to me, "Oh, are you on a diet?" I go, "Nope, not on a diet, not on a diet. I'm just change the way I approach eating and food, whatever, because I didn't like that association with the idea of you eat this, you do the diet that they prescribe to you, which is eat these foods, don't eat these foods, drink this drink, take this stuff,
Right.
and then when you've lost the weight, that part's over, and then you're on your own. Well, no, that's not what this program is. This program teaches you how to build your own forward motion in the area of eating and exercise and taking care of yourself. And that's a huge difference. That's
Yeah.
huge. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
commend
thank
you.
you. I get it. And I commend you as well. The Mutual
Thank you.
Admiration Society.
Okay.
Well, I am very proud of you and your journey, and I am proud of you in this book coming out. It sounds amazing. And again, just having that, again, the weight door opens, like you said, that self-confidence key that allows you to shine in this area of your life and being an author and
Yeah, not
bringing that
hiding.
gift to the world. No hiding.
Yeah.
I love
No
it.
hiding. Yeah.
That's the theme. Okay, Lorraine, it was so awesome to have you on and how inspirational
Thank
you
you.
are. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And again, Chick Singer, the link is in the show notes, and I look forward to reading
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, thank you
Fantastic.
so much, and we'll
All
look
right,
forward to
Rita.
having you back on. Take
Okay.
care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Lorraine, and I'm so proud of you and your book that is out, upcoming like right now. It's coming out. So do Lorraine a favor, go into the show notes, click the link to get her book, Chick Singer. It's in the show notes. So proud of you, Lorraine, and so proud of you all. Have a great week, and remember that the key and probably the only key to unlocking the door of the weight struggle is inside you. So keep listening and find it. And we will be back next week. See you then. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Sound good? Let's get started.